Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a deep dive into the world of college admissions.
I'm Mark Stucker, and I'm the founder and producer. Our mission is to make college knowledge available to all. We care deeply about your kid. We believe college is a match to be made and not a prize to be won. We believe in being genuine and transparent. We are committed to covering a variety of topics, including the tough subjects. Thanks to your generosity, we're committed to providing a minimum of 10 hours of fresh, commercial-free content every month, with episodes every Monday and Thursday. We have a variety of co-hosts because we believe and value diverse perspectives. You're our listening family, and we get great joy every time we meet with you, as we do our best to give you tools so your students can soar and reach their limitless potential. Good morning, friends. Hopefully everybody had a fantastic Christmas and you're enjoying your holidays, had great time with family. I know we were blessed to have both Karis and Joy here from Raleigh and Durham and for 5 days. But just like that, Karis is now in India and Joy's in Grenada. So spend time with those kids. The years go fast and they're out of the house and they're gone. Today's a really special episode for me. We've reached the big 600. And I'm reminded of a quote that goes like this: if you see a turtle on a fence post, you know it didn't get there by itself. I would be remiss to not thank all the people that have helped us get to episode 600. From people who have sent in speak pipe questions to people who have suggested topics or speakers, to people who have sent emails and text messages and just given feedback. To all of our donors, from the smallest donor to the monthly donors who provide financial support so we can stay commercial free and deliver this content to you. I think about all the people who spread the word to somebody else. So many times people write in and say, I tell everybody about Your College Bound Kid. That's how we grow. That's how we reach people. That's how we help each other. And we're a listening family. And we support each other. And this is a special episode to me. We started this last year at 500, but every 100 episodes, we crowdsource our knowledge. We do what families do. We share tips that have helped us so that they can help someone else. And I'm going to stop now because, for one, I have a tip in the middle of this episode. And you know me, it's not a 30-second one. So you'll hear from me in the middle. But I want to hear from about 20 of you who sent in messages. Before we transition to the first tip, though, I do have to make a transitional statement. So all of the tips, except for this first one, were sent in from listeners coast to coast in the last couple of weeks. The first tip you're going to hear actually comes from an interview that I did that you haven't heard yet. You'll hear it on episode 611, 613, and 615. We got such good feedback from the 6 weeks in a row when we ran with student content that I decided to do some more of these. So I interviewed two students, Summer and Daniela, from the University of Pennsylvania, a couple of my former students. And at the end of the interview, I thought they left you all with some real profound statements. And so rather than you wait to hear them in episode 611, which is still 2 months away, the first voices you're going to hear are Summer from Chicago and Daniela from Greater Philadelphia with their tips. And after that, you all have the mic. Thank you all for making this podcast very special and for the teamwork, because as they say, teamwork makes the dream work. So what would be your advice for a high school student out there listening, for a parent out there listening, for a college counselor out there listening? You could pick any one of those groups and speak to them. What would be your advice?
I think that what was most helpful to me when applying to college as a student, and also just most helpful to my community of people that I had around me, is really thinking about what was my story? What did I want to talk about? What was authentic to me? I actually ended up doing most of the things that I talked about wanting to do in my Penn supplements and in my college application. I did those things. I followed through on them. And it's because it was genuine to what my interests were and what I was passionate about. And so I think being honest with yourself, honest with your child, honest with whoever you're working with, is so important in the college application process, and like not everywhere is a fit for everyone, and like that's okay. You have to do what's best for you and like what will be pay off for you in the long run.
Yeah, I think that was so well spoken. I really do believe in taking time during the college application process to think about what you really want and what you want from a college experience, because we are in a country that has so many diverse opportunities for college. You have liberal arts schools, you have more bigger state schools. There's different opportunities. Even if you don't know what you want to study, like take that into consideration as well. I mean, just think about what you want your college experience to look like, and there's so many different schools that can meet that for you. And I think really doing your research on schools before you get there. I think trying to figure out anything you can, speaking to current students. I think if you're listening to this podcast, you're already like 10 steps ahead.
Yeah.
I think just doing your research, and it makes the process so much easier once you know that the school is like a good fit for you.
Hi, Mark and everyone on the podcast team. This is Beth, a loyal member of your listening family, and this is a big thank you message. I started listening to the podcast in 2018 or 2019. My son, a high school junior, was a typical standard strong student. At the time, though, I thought he was off the charts. He had taken over 10 AP courses. He was one of the top students in his enormous high school. He had over a 1550 on his SATs, and he was very involved in extracurriculars. He worked crazy hard because he wanted to get into what I call a fancy school. I wanted him to realize his dreams and get rewarded for all the hard work he had done. However, I was very concerned about money. We were an 80th percentile family. The FAFSA and fancy school net price calculators told us that we were expected to pay about $45,000 a year. We had $25,000 per year saved for each of our kids. Because of cost, I would not let my son apply early decision anywhere. At the end of the day, he got into a handful of state schools. He was not happy. I have several friends that did use the early decision option. Seeing their kids get into the fancy schools that my son hoped for made me feel like a bad parent. I was second-guessing my decision to eliminate the early decision option. Now my son is good. He went to the state school for engineering and graduated last year. He is now in a PhD program. He got a full ride at a very strong university that's giving him amazing opportunities. Your podcast helped me when I didn't know who to brainstorm with about all this. Your podcast also helped us consider a wider range of schools, particularly for our daughter, who graduated from high school 2 years after our son. She was also a standard strong student. Your college spotlight on UAB caught my attention. She was interested in nursing, and we wanted a direct admit program that we could afford. She will graduate from UAB with a degree in nursing soon. At the end of it all, we have money left over in their 529 accounts. I can't believe it. And I can't tell you the feeling of relief to know that both kids got the education they needed at a cost that we could afford, and they both enjoyed their college experience. I still never miss an episode. Thanks for all you do.
Hi, Mark and the YCBK team. This is Lara from outside of Philadelphia, a mom of a college freshman and high school junior. A recommendation I wanted to share for episode 600 is to pick up a copy of the campus newspaper when you're on a college visit. I found it really interesting to see what the students are reporting on and sharing with the other students. And these newspapers usually have a social media presence, so then I would follow them on Instagram as well. This allowed me to continue to see what was making the news on campus. It didn't really change my son's mind about whether to apply or eventually enroll in the school, but it did just add to the overall picture of the university and the campus culture. Thanks as always for all that you do to help educate parents and students.
Hi, I am the parent of a senior in Syracuse, New York, and have been listening to your podcast since the beginning of her junior year. I would say the best advice that we got was to start the essays early. We had her start her essays in May of her junior year, and she was completely done by the end of the summer, where most of her peers were just starting to work on them in the fall of senior year. This really took a lot of stress and pressure off, and we had been told they would be working on these in class, and they have never mentioned them in class. So we're so happy that she had those behind her and could focus on her rigorous course schedule for senior year. Thank you for everything.
Congratulations on your milestone. A tip that I have for listeners is we often hear about how important it is for your student to have their own dedicated email address for college applications. You might consider as a parent also having a dedicated email address because you sure get a lot of email from these colleges. Thanks.
Hi, I am a mom from North Jersey, and I just wanted to share what I have learned on this podcast and from others that has been enormously helpful for me and my senior. My child is one that had no idea where she wanted to go, and other than, region and weather, unlike a lot of kids, she actually wanted cold and not hot. And because of that, we actually started early. We went on our first set of tours the summer before her junior year, and we did what we were recommended to do, which is just to see the kind of schools. So we just took a road trip that was local. We saw some small schools in a city. We saw some small schools in more rural areas. We saw some bigger schools. And by starting early and just making it a fun road trip that had nothing to do with particular schools or saying these ones have to be on your list or we're crossing them off your list, made the whole experience from then on out just feel like everything was just a series of fun, quick road trips, weekend trips. We did for the school slightly further away. We used her spring break junior year, and it just made the whole process more fun because we started it off from the place of let's just explore. Let's see what's there. There's so many options. Let's just figure out what feels good to you and what doesn't. The other thing I would say is because we started early, again, not with high pressure, but just with, this is an exploration, this is a journey, let's enjoy it. It also meant that by the beginning of the summer before her senior year, she had her list of the 10 schools she wanted to apply to, and then she got all of her essays done over the summer. And that was amazing because then she got to start her senior year. And she hadn't applied. She only applied to one place at a rolling admission, but she hadn't applied everywhere. But she had her essays done. So by the time we were actually she was filling out all of her Common App stuff in the fall, she had the thing that required iteration and really thinking about it done. And that was amazing. And I think so far has enabled her to enjoy her senior year.
Hi, everyone. This message is for the 600th episode. I have two pieces of advice that I have learned from Mark and the team. Number one is to really mine the common data set for all the relevant information to ensure that your students' list is well balanced with safety, target, and reach schools. Secondly, a lot of schools are test optional, but what I've realized as I've begun this college search journey with my child is that a lot of schools tie merit scholarships directly to standardized test scores. So just because your school says test optional and your student doesn't think they have to take standardized test scores seriously, make sure that you look into whether or not merit scholarships are tied directly to those scores, whether they need them for admission or not. That was a big surprise to us, and it really helped my student understand why it's important to take those tests seriously. Thank you for all you do, and congratulations on 600 wonderful episodes.
Hi, everybody. This is Jennifer in Florida sharing a resource for the 600th episode. My resource is called College Navigator, and I get to it by just going to Google and putting in College Navigator because it is a government site and the URL is a little different. And I want to talk about how I specifically use it. So when I go there, I am looking up a given school, a school that I'm interested in. And then there's a lot of data there on the right, but I'm going to the Programs and Majors tab. And what that tab shows me is the distribution of majors at that school. So it's showing you 1 year of data. It's not showing you kind of like the full school, the 4 years worth of individuals studying these topics, but it's showing you most recent degrees awarded. And in doing that, it shows you the distribution amongst the different major types. And so sometimes, if I have a student looking at a particular school and I look at it and see that it's very, very big on health related majors, including nursing and some other things, and really big on business, and my student is neither of those, I kind of want to know that, and I maybe want to look a little deeper before recommending that school. So that's how I'm using the Programs and Majors tab on College Navigator. Thanks again for all you do.
Hi, I'm a mom from Hawaii, and I just want to congratulate Mark and the team on 600 episodes. I have a piece of advice to share that I learned having two students go through this college application process. With my first child, who's a junior in college now, we had her apply very widely, and we didn't take into account the kind of learner she was or what she hoped to gain from her college experience. So thankfully, she got into a school that she chose. It was her first choice, and she's doing fantastic now. But we could have probably taken about 10 schools off of her list and not had her apply to them at all because they would not have been the right fit for her. Fast forward to now with our current high school senior who just sent in his applications, his list is about half as long because we realized that he was just going to target schools that really were a great fit for him, where he was a great fit, and schools that would really value him as a member of their community. It made everything so much simpler. All of the supplements were so much simpler for him to write about. His interviews were so much more just enjoyable because he was being interviewed by people who really wanted to get to know a kid like him. And the whole process has just been so much easier with our second child. He really knows that no matter where he gets in, he's going to be happy and succeed. And we just really suggest making a smaller, targeted list just of schools that your child would really fit in it. Thank you.
Hi, guys. Happy 600. I wanted to share what I've learned. One important thing that this podcast shared was the niche direct admissions, which I would recommend to any family that has a high school student looking forward and how to plan out the senior year. It's a really easy tool to use, and it gives a lot of great options and scholarship dollars that'll make your student feel confident and empowered and may end up being one of the places that your child chooses to go to. The other thing I want to talk about that the podcast mentions a lot is just the wait and the time that this whole process takes. And I would say that over the course of the years, it is important to visit as many schools as you can if you're on vacation, if you're just passing through, if you're walking through a campus or going into a dining hall or going on a formal tour. As our daughter awaits a bunch of decisions this month of December, the best analogy she and I have come up with is being in an airport and everyone's in a boarding area and they're getting on different planes and they know that they're off to a new destination, but she's still waiting at the airport. She hasn't picked her school yet and hasn't received all her notifications. So just preparing your student for being the one in the airport, being the one that doesn't have the flight yet, and encouraging them that, you know, by looking back at those niche offers and different things that the podcast teaches us, that they are going to take off. It's just a matter of when their boarding pass is called. So keep the faith, and thank you all for what you do. It's more than important. It's life-changing. Thank you.
Hi, Mark and YCBK team. It's Allison in Ohio, and I'm happy to give some advice for episode 600. I often have parents ask me how they should prioritize which campuses to visit in person, as it is obviously difficult to get to all of the schools that a student may be interested in considering. And so what I tell them are three main things. One, check the common data set to see if demonstrated interest matters, because certainly showing up on campus is a high level of showing interest. And so that can be really beneficial. Two, check current essay prompts to see if the school is asking a why this school type of question. It is much easier to write a strong response to that prompt if the student has actually stepped foot on the campus. And three, if there is a school that is potentially on the list as an ED possibility, certainly a student should visit. No student should ever apply to a school early decision binding if they have not stepped foot on campus, ideally. And then when you do go, don't hesitate to customize the visit according to your interests. I had a student that made sure to visit the makerspace on every campus. If you have a learning disability, don't hesitate to talk to the staff in the Office of Accessibility Services. If you're curious about Jewish life on campus, go visit the Hillel. Think about what you need to know to help you decide whether the school might be a good fit and seek out those buildings, people, and resources. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth, and I'm calling from Tucson, Arizona. I have a son that's a junior, and I've been listening to the podcast for a little over a year now, and have always wanted to contribute a question, but never got around to it or couldn't narrow down a question because there's so many that I have, and there's so many wonderful podcast episodes. But this morning, Thursday, December 11th, I had an aha moment and I had to send it in. This podcast is amazing in its generosity of information. The kind host and co-host, thank you so much for everything that you all do. But the one thing that I want to contribute to your, hopefully, maybe your 600th episode is that this podcast has taught me to be a better human. It is just amazing, the insight, the empathy, everything that you spoke of this morning was just wonderful and teaches us how to be a better human. Please keep up the wonderful work. I just can't imagine going through this process without you all. Thank you very much.
Hi, Mark and team. Now that we are at the end of my son's college application process, there are a couple of things we did based on advice we learned here and from others that I would definitely recommend. The first is that my son did his standardized testing the summer after his sophomore year in high school. He had completed all the math he needed and had a good amount of time to study as the school year was winding down and before his more time-consuming summer activities started. It was so good to get that out of the way and to be able to just focus on schoolwork and the college search during his junior year. It was also helpful to know what his scores were as we started the college search process. It was nice to have that data point much earlier in the process. This plan might not be for every kid, but it worked well for us. My second tip is that, like many other folks, we set up a separate email account for his college applications with a more adult-sounding email address. But we didn't know to do this until we were well into the process, so we ended up waiting until he had his college list basically finalized before we switched over to the new account. As a result, the new account just had emails from the colleges he was likely applying to. This was a huge help as we got closer to application time because his old inbox was flooded with emails from so many colleges that we knew he had no interest in, and it would have been easy to miss the emails from the colleges he was focused on amidst all the others. I hope these tips are helpful to others. Thank you so much for everything we learned from you and your team over the past couple of years.
Friends, I was torn about contributing to episode 600. I mean, you hear from me every week. Part of me feels like this is our listeners' time to speak. I don't need to crash the party. But an idea popped in my head pretty recently, and I tried it out with one student and it helped her. Then I tried it with a second student and it helped her. So I'm also hoping it will help you, our listening family, as well. Let me start with some background. You know, if you're a regular listener of this podcast, at least twice a month, I end the podcast by emphasizing, it's not where you go. It's not where you go. And if you've heard our podcast, you know how that ends. Have you ever thought of why I say that repeatedly? I can assure you I don't go around and stop at people on the street and start saying, it's not where you go. I don't say that to my friends. My brother, who's my best friend, he's never heard me say that. There are two reasons why I say this repeatedly. The first reason is because it is true and it's often misunderstood and neglected. And it's important, and I have to get the message out here. You control your own destiny, not your pedigree, not the sheepskin on your wall, the bumper sticker on your car. But the second reason is because I believe self-esteem is really important. If you don't believe in yourself, you're limited in what you're going to accomplish. And social media and other forces are waging war against our kids' self-esteem. So if your self-esteem's, let's say, a 5.5 out of 10 coming into this college process, I want it higher when you leave. If you're a 9.5 out of 10, I want it 9.6 to 10.0 when you leave. But if you let it, this college process can have you feeling worse about yourself when you're through with it. And if you're limited in your mind about what you believe you can accomplish because you buy into the canard that the college you attend, not you yourself, will determine your destiny, you're toast. You're not going to reach your full potential. This is why athletes use trash talk. You're terrible at this sport. You can't play a lick. If I can get into your head, it will impact your body and your mind. One of the most disturbing conversations I had was a few years ago with a student who's in college in Boston right now. But when he was in high school, he said to me, I hate this college process. And I said, why? And he said, it just beats you down. To which I said, well, it doesn't have to beat you down. To which he said, yes, it does. It just does. Well, we went back and forth a few more times before I realized he was set in his beliefs and he wasn't going to change. Well, friends, I have good news for you. The college process doesn't have to beat you down. You can leave this process with your self-esteem enhanced and flourishing. The key, though, is to have the right list of colleges and to have proper expectations. I was talking to one of my students the other day who's getting so many acceptances, and here's a quote from what he said to me. It just feels so good getting all of this validation. Did you hear that? It just feels so good getting all of this validation. Now, this doesn't mean you don't apply to some very selective schools. This student who said this is applying to some very selective schools. We don't need to encourage risk-averse behavior. If you get into the habit of that, you'll never go for the promotion. You'll never start the business you've always wanted to start. But we have to strike a balance. This isn't about being afraid of rejection. Now, in the past, I would try to address several major problems I see in the mindsets of students and parents that I work with that anyone who's doing college counseling is going to encounter when you start doing college counseling. A belief that you need to go to a T20 school, top-heavy college lists, a lack of understanding how many people you are competing with and how strong most of those kids are, respecting the competition, a lack of understanding of how few spots are actually available for anyone, because institutional priorities gobble up so many spots that any one student has no shot at fulfilling. I was having lunch with a former client of mine about a year ago, and we were just talking about the process, and I said, I love my job, but it's hard. And the mom says to me, of course it's hard. You have to tell people something about their kids that they don't want to hear. For some reason, I never really processed it that way. But the question is, how can you do it in an inspiring way? How can you have people to be full of hope and inspiration and feel great about themselves? Well, one approach I've often used is an analogy. Students think they're in a bathtub or a hot tub, but you're in an ocean. That's an analogy, and it's an emotional argument. Or I'll use a statistical argument. There's 33,000 high schools out there, and that means there's 66,000 valedictorians and salutatorians just in this country alone. And if 1 out of 4 apply to the T20 school you're interested in, that's 16,000 kids ranked 1 or 2 in their class applying for about 1,600 spots. Or another statistical argument, I quote from Jonathan Burdick, former VP of Enrollment at Cornell, something he said on a podcast in 2023, when he said the acceptance rate at Cornell last year for kids with perfect test scores was 1 in 9. All of those statements were motivated by my attempt to have kids cast a wider net with their college list. More importantly, their expectations. So one, they could realize there's not just 20 good schools or 50 good schools, but also so their self-esteem wouldn't take a hit. Now, those approaches may or may not be effective. And it's such a challenge changing mentality, changing mindset, that I'll continue to use all the tools in the toolkit. But the problem with those approaches is I'm coming at the mindset I'm attempting to debunk, or at least alter, from a negative angle. It's Christmas, so let me use a Christmas talk here. I could see a student or parent thinking, thanks, Scrooge. Thanks, Grinch. That was deflating. Especially when you look at it from their perspective. They don't know that they're in an ocean. They think they're in a bathtub. They think they're in a hot tub. To them, their vantage point is their local high school, or maybe if the school's in their town or their city. That's usually their vantage point, not the whole world. Now, I've said to parents many times, if you're not excited about the range on your college list, not only are you going to add tremendous pressure to your students' mental health, but they're going to know how you feel. You can't say, I will really be proud of you if you go to any of the colleges on your list, and think that they will believe you unless you really believe it. They're smart. They're intuitive. They know what you think. And I know it's hard because nobody's saying all schools are equal. So this isn't easy, right? So I have been asking myself, how can I deliver a more positive message that lands effectively for students and parents that's fun? And I came up with a game. I call it the College Matriculation Guessing Game. And it works. I first tried it with a student in Greenwich High School in Connecticut, who I'm working with. And I liked the feedback a lot. Then I tried it with a student in Scarsdale High School in New York. Once again, they were encouraged. So how does it work? Well, there are two ways you play this game. First method, anytime you're watching TV and you see someone who impresses you, let's say it's a newscaster or a reporter or just someone giving a speech, or an actress. I mean, it could be anybody. You just guess where they went to college. Now, you could do this with a parent. You could do it with a friend or a sibling. You could even do it with yourself. But the game that I have here is meant to be played with two or more people. So let's give a real concrete example. Dana Bash hosts a TV show on CNN. So let's say I'm with my daughters, Karis and Joy, and I say, let's guess where Dana Bash went to college. So I say UCLA. Karis says Columbia. Joy says Northwestern. We look up the answer and, true fact, she went to George Washington University in D.C. Then you turn to Alexa or Gemini or Chat or whatever large language model you use, because it's just a fast and quick, easy way to do this. And you see how many miles is your guess from where she actually went to school. Because if you only get points if you get it right, I'm going to tell you, you're going to get frustrated because there's so many colleges out there. After like 8 misses in a row, you're going to quit and say it's too hard. So this is how it works. Now I used Alexa. So this is true facts. So I said, Alexa, how far is it from UCLA in Los Angeles to George Washington in DC? Answer, 2,304 miles. Alexa, how far is it from Columbia University in New York City to George Washington in DC? 210 miles. Karis guess. Alexa, how far is it from Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois to George Washington University in DC? Joy's guess, 599 miles. The closest is Karis. Columbia, 210 miles, 1 point for Karis. Now, you decide ahead of time. Are you going to play up to 3, up to 5, up to 10, or you can do whatever you want. And when whoever gets to that number, you decide ahead of time, 3, 5, or 10, is the winner. So that's how the game works. The second version is simple. You don't need to be watching TV. You can just randomly pick anybody and just play the game. Now, why I love this game is because it won't take long before your kid, and quite honestly, you as a parent, will start to realize all these talented people went to a range of colleges. Some are super prestigious. Some are flagship publics. Some are regional publics. Some are elite liberal arts. Some are more obscure schools that I don't even know what state they're in. There might even be some you haven't even heard of. I don't know of a more effective way to change mindset, to convince students and parents that there aren't just 20 or 50 good colleges out there. Try the game. Pick people you're impressed with. It will help your kids' mental health. You'll build their self-esteem. You'll reduce the pressure they feel that they need to go to a designer college, and you'll have some fun in the process. The college process doesn't have to beat you down like my student in college in Boston said. But you need some tools in your toolkit to counter the avalanche of unproductive voices coming at your kid, and quite frankly, coming at you. And I believe the college matriculation guessing game is one of those tools in your toolkit, and it's my tip for episode 600. We'll now continue with more tips from our listening family.
Hello, your college bound kid, and congratulations on your 600th episode. I've learned so much from this podcast over the years, and the tip I'd like to share is regarding sending official test scores and issues I've seen some seniors have this year. As you make your college list, I'd make sure that you're really aware which schools require official SAT or ACT scores. And the headline here is really that when you're sending SAT scores from a College Board, at least, you've got to estimate that it's going to take a lot longer for them to send it and have the university match those scores up with your application than you expect. So I'd say, as a rule of thumb, send them at least 2 weeks before they're due. And if you have them ready, I'd send them honestly as soon as you know you're applying to that school, just to be safe. It's also really helpful to learn all the deadlines for the schools that you're applying to. So, for example, University of Central Florida had an early action application deadline of October 15th and a materials deadline of November 15th. So they wanted your Common App by October 15th, and you had 1 month to get in your test scores and transcripts, things like that. I know some students sent their scores before the November 15th deadline, a few days before, but unfortunately they weren't received until a week or so later. So the students were ineligible for the early action decision, and they were pushed into rolling or regular decision round. I've heard this happening at several schools, and I just wanted to remind everyone to send those scores early. I think in this day and age, we're used to electronic transactions happening instantly, but unfortunately, this is not the case for test scores. So I hope this message helps somebody, and thanks again for everything.
Hi, Mark. This is the parent of a high school senior from Portland, Oregon. A huge congratulations on 600 episode. The biggest tip I've learned and what I want other parents to hear is how to cut through the prestige hype by combining the net price calculator with the section H of the common data set. You've taught me that instead of guessing based on a school's brand, I can look at Section H to see exactly how they award Meditate. It has allowed me to be a more of a data-driven parent, keeping the prestige pressure in my head so my daughter can focus on the schools that are a true financial and personal fit. Thank you so much for all you do and helping me move from emotion to information. Thank you so much.
Hi, Mark. This is Anne from Massachusetts, and I'm calling in with 2 tips for episode 600. Number 1 is, unless you can afford and you're happy to pay $400,000 for a bachelor's degree, please tell your child early in their high school years the exact dollar amount that your family can and will contribute towards their college education. So this means before junior year of high school, the child needs to know what budget they're working with. So before they're visiting campuses and before they're falling in love with any one particular school, and definitely before they are submitting any applications, they need to know what is the maximum budget that what does the bottom line have to come back from the college in order for that child to accept admission, and make sure that you're running a net price calculator on any school you're applying to before the child applies. My second tip is somewhat related. It's regarding loans. Just from talking with friends, it's become abundantly clear that many parents aren't aware the only loan that a child can take out on their own credit in this day and age is this federal student Stafford loan. And that is only $27,000 total over all 4 years. It's $5,500 freshman year. Any loan amount above that Stafford loan is actually taken out on the parent's credit. It is legally the parent's responsibility to pay back. So it's not like when we were in college and the kids could take out these huge loans, themselves and would be responsible for paying back themselves. No, now it is on the parent. If you're taking out any loan above that Stafford loan, it's the parent's credit that's on the line. So know that when you're setting your budget and talking to your child early in this whole college process. Thanks.
Hi, Mark. This is Mary from South Dakota. I'm just calling in with a couple tips for your upcoming episode. So my first tip would be, if a student is trying to go to a highly selective college, try to find a current student at the college and ask one question. Are you happy here? Whether you find these students on the tour or walking around campus or through a website connection, or maybe you know somebody that is going to the school that you could reach out to, maybe somebody from a prior class at your school, ask them, are you happy here? We asked everybody that, and
I did not get one single person that said, I am happy. They said things like, I'm glad I chose this place. I'm getting a great education. This was a wonderful opportunity. This was my first choice. But none of them said that they were happy. So I found that very telling. And it's not a reason not to go to these schools, but it does tell you kind of something about the culture at these highly selective elite schools. The other thing I would say is if you can find an adult with high school or grade school age kids who is an alumni of one of these schools, and that person is willing to talk to you, ask that person one question. Ask that person, would you send your children to this school? I myself and my daughter asked some alumni that we were able to make contact with that same question. And there were an awful lot of them that said no. And then if they say no, ask why. And the reason why I think this is so important is because people are so obsessed with getting into these super elite, prestigious schools, Ivy League schools, MIT, Duke, Stanford, whatever it is, that they don't stop and think, what is my experience going to be like? And I am someone who's been practicing law in private practice for several decades. And it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like making partner at the law firm. Like it's everybody's goal. It's like, oh, I got to go to the big law firm. I have to work really hard and I'm going to make partner. And they think that if they do that, then, there's going to be a switch that flips and everything's going to be better or great or it's all worth it. And it might be all worth it financially or because of the work you're getting or the people you're exposed to. But what we say in the law business is making partner at a law firm is like winning a pie eating contest and the prize is more pie. And I think that kind of applies to these elite school admissions. Getting into one of them, you work your butt off, you do all this stuff in school, you take all these classes, you do all this stuff, you're working every minute, try to get into school, try to get into the school, try to get into the school, you get into the school, and the reward is more work. So if people know that and that's what they want, it's great and more power to them. And these are all great schools. But I don't know if people realize that if they go to the schools that they want to get into, it's just going to be a lot more work and they may not be happy there. So that's just what I would want to recommend is just look at the total picture and don't romanticize these schools and don't think if you get in that they're going to be this panacea and your problems will be solved and the road will be paved ahead of you and you just follow it. It's not quite that simple. So that's my 2 cents worth. Sorry, such a long message. Thanks for everything you're doing. Great show. Love it. Bye.
Hi, Mark and crew. This is Jason from Minneapolis. I've often heard Mark say that the search for a good fit college is as much about self-discovery for a high school senior as it is about a college search. So here's my tip. Do the self-discovery part first. We've had 2 kids and found wonderful fits for both of them. And a key to that was that in the sophomore year of high school, we focused resources into a career counselor or coach. This helped them do personality tests, a skills inventory, and discover fields that they would both excel at and be really good at and enjoy. When we went to go search for colleges, they had that in the back of their mind, and it allowed them to focus on attributes of the college that match their personalities and strengths. So my tip is focus on the self-discovery first, put resources into that, and then focus on the college search. Thanks for all you do. Take care from Minneapolis.
Congratulations on 600 episodes. It's a huge, huge deal. This is Sean Elliott from Los Angeles, California. A few things that I learned from my daughter, Paige, who's currently a freshman at Cornell. Number one, the word we does not belong. It is not we are applying, we are filling out applications, we are going to see some schools. There is no we. If you need to learn it the hard way, buy a shock collar for a dog, put it on your neck, and every time the word we is said, hit it. We does not belong. We are not doing anything. It's all them. It is all through their eyes. That's number 2. Let them drive from the very beginning. Do they even want to go to college? Do they see a different path? Do they want to go to a top 50 school? Do they want to go to their state flagship? Do they want to go to community college? All of that is just big yes energy from the very beginning. And then sit back and be quiet. Let the process take place. It's probably going to lead where you think it's going to lead. And I'll take that all the way to the tours. The order they want to see the schools, the schools they want to see. Be open to all of that. Let them drive. Stay quiet on the tour or don't go on the tours at all. Let them go and experience it themselves. And number 3, After the tour, say nothing. No opinions, no versions of it, because what you are seeing through your 40-year-old, 50-year-old, 35-year-old, whatever eyes is not the same as they are seeing through their 17-year-old, 18-year-old, 19-year-old eyes at all. Be quiet. Let them take it in. At a moment, they are going to chit, chatter, and they're going to let you all know every single bit about it, and you're going to learn it. And then you're meeting it on their terms, and you can talk it through with them. Let them absolutely drive all the way through the process and be open and be supportive. And the final piece is, if they want to go for a top 20 school, if they want to go for it, have them sign up for that. Nobody needs to. It's not a thing you have to do. And if they sign up for it and want to go and take on something monumentally hard and realize there's a 5%, 10%, 15% chance of something like that, hey, if you're going to go to the Olympics, you would be putting everything into that, 100% of it. We don't need to go for those schools. You don't need to. But if you do, throw yourself into it. And then the final piece of it is to know this. If you shoot high, and you don't hit your ultimate target, that is still success. It is absolutely success. The only way to have absolute success you're sure about is to not try at all. And that gets you nowhere. So aim high and make sure you're holding on to them. And wherever they go, you're going to wear the sweatshirt. You're going to wear the hat. You are absolutely going to be so proud of them all the way through. Again, thanks so much for 600 episodes. What you bring to everybody for free is so important and valuable. And thank you for all you do.
Friends, I hope you found this as helpful as I did. Now, you have to stay to the very end because there's one more tip, and I'm leaving it to the end. But for anyone who sent in a tip that we played, you are eligible for one of the 4 books from Princeton Review. You just have to email me at mark@schoolmatch4u.com, mark@schoolmatch4u.com, or we do have a brand new website, brand new email, yourcollegebounkid@gmail.com, and put your address and let me know the book you want. Or you can wait, because in about 8 weeks, I'm going to be adding 2 more books to our rotation. So you're going to have a choice of 6, not 4, thanks to the generosity of a few other authors. So you'll have 6 choices to select from in about 2 months. So if you want to wait, that's also fine. On Thursday's episode, Julia will join me to discuss, what do you do if you're deferred or waitlisted? Hillary will answer a question from a listener, and you'll hear the final part of my interview with Kev Sanders on the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. Okay, friends, let's hear our final tip from one of our listeners.
Hey, Mark, it's Barbara from Ocala. So I know it's getting down to the wire and it's almost 600. And I guess I have a question. Like, how do you take almost 600 episodes of seriously amazing information every single time and get it down to one tip? So unless I can have about 10 hours to answer this question, I guess I'm going to go back to my standard, which is why I got hooked on your podcast in the first place. It's not where you go. It's not where you go. It's not where you go. It's what you do when you get there and what you do, what you get out of there. That has been my mantra for 40 years. And then to hear that as the guiding principle and mission behind your college-bound kid, you had me, and you'll never lose me. Wishing you all the best, and the whole staff and all the contributors to the podcast. Just truly amazing service you are doing to reach everybody. College knowledge for all. So congrats. Here's to another 600.
See you on Thursday, friends. And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us and you will get every single episode as soon as they are released. If you want to support our podcast, you can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can say positive things about your college-bound kid on your social media feed. And you can help us stay commercial-free and pay our staff by donating on the yourcollegeboundkid.website. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. And if you have a question or a recommendation, just go to speakpipe.com/YCBK hit the orange button and speak. We will do our best to get your question in your own voice on an upcoming episode. I am the producer of the podcast, and I live in Metro Atlanta. We have a fantastic team that has over 200 years of admissions and counseling experience. Shout out to our co-hosts, Dr. Lisa Ruff in North Carolina, Susan Tree in Pennsylvania, Vince Garcia in California, Julia Esquivel in Massachusetts, Linda Depker in Missouri, Andy Strickler, the Chief Enrollment Officer at Connecticut College, New London, Connecticut, Hillary Dickman, an Admission Officer at Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and our International Admissions Expert, Kevin Newton in Dallas, Texas. Our sensational sound engineer is Nemanja Motvich. Our amazing music is from Victor Allen Weeks. Marketing designs from Kimberly Bloss. Our reliable webmaster is Stylionos Dimitru. Website updates are done by Joyce Stucker. Our image editor is Vlad Honchar. If you want to have a coaching session with me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you want to reach someone else on our team, all of our bios with contact info can be found at yourcollegeboundkid.com under the About YCBK tab. If you want to get our free monthly YCBK newsletter, YCBK Plus, it is also under the About YCBK tab. If you want to see our recommended books and websites, they are on our website under the Resources tab. While you're on our website, check out our hundreds of interviews in their entirety. Check out our college spotlights, our blog, and our upcoming events. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting with you every single Monday and every single Thursday.